Cheers. Oh, that's the stuff. Hello my lovelies, welcome to the August 2019 episode of the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast. My name is Leslie and this is a podcast about knitting, crochet, spinning, machine knitting, anything yarn related, recorded in the south coast of England, where I live with my husband, known as himself, and our diva dog Heidi. Thank you very much for being here. Whether you're a new or a returning viewer, you're very, very welcome. So thank you so much. If you're wondering why it's called the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast, when behind me there are two of three cupboards, it's because I rarely have enough for the whole of a particular project. So I tend to buy yarn because it's pretty rather than planning what I'm going to do with it. So whenever I've turned up at knitting group with something that's got a stripe in it or a block of colour, I say, well, I didn't have quite enough yarn to, and that's the theme. So that's why it's called the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast. I have, with one or two exceptions, been on a yarn diet for a long time now. It's feeling like a very long time. But I've really enjoyed looking at my stash and seeing what I've got. I've also really enjoyed being given lots of yarn by people, which is incredibly kind of them. There's more of that to come this month. Thank you. So it all helps kind of boost the creativity for me. Walking into a yarn store, if someone said, you know, here's a voucher for a sweater quantity's worth of yarn, go buy, I think that would freeze me. Whereas if someone just says, you know, go and buy some nice yarn, that would be lovely. So anyway, I'm on a yarn diet and it's been a really enjoyable process. Now, someone else who's on a yarn diet is the wonderful Barbara from the Flame and Fibre podcast, and she and I are hosting a Knit From Your Stash craft along. So it's been running since beginning of January. It runs till the end of the year. Really simple rules. The yarn or the fibre, if you're spinning, has to have been in your stash as at the end of last year, and the project has to be started from the beginning of this year. So them's the rules. If you need a little bit of yarn to finish something off, that's allowable within the rules of the giveaway, knit along, crochet along, craft along, words, English, not always my strong point. As long as the newly bought yarn doesn't take up more than 50% of the total. So yes, I hope you're looking to take part in that. If you go on to my and Barbara's Ravelry groups, we both have finished object threads, which are no chatter, and we also have chatter threads. And the chatter threads, people are posting their FOs there as well, but that way other people can say, oh, I really like that yarn, or what's the pattern, or all of that. And oh, excuse me, sorry, I've had a bit of a croak this month. So that's all going along swimmingly. It's been incredibly inspiring. My library and queue have grown considerably thanks to all of you who are taking part. And it's amazing to see the range of things, from cute little amigurumi toys to blankets and everything in between. So thank you so much to everyone who's joining in. If you haven't yet, there's still plenty of time if you'd like to, so you're more than welcome. Prizes are drawn from the chatter thread and from the FO thread quarterly. On the chatter thread, the prize is a pattern, and with the FO thread, the prize is something more squishy and tangible. And I hope you're enjoying it if you're taking part, because I'm certainly enjoying looking at the stuff that you're making. So thank you to everyone who's been involved in that. And if you're not, hope you enjoy seeing what other people are doing, because there are some great things that have been made out there. I normally record throughout the month, So you'll see me in different places, wearing different clothes. Sometimes I even wear makeup, but this morning it's Sunday, it's been raining, it's a chill out kind of day. And yeah, and then I splice it all together. Is splice the right word? Not sure. And post it on the last weekend of each month. So hope you enjoy it. This month I am mostly working, that sounds like an old Fast Show sketch if you're from the UK. This month I have mostly been working on the test knit that I've been doing, the Aadya sweater for Knidiknits. So by the time we get to the end of this podcast, I'm hoping that it'll be finished or very close to it. I've really enjoyed the project, so looking forward to sharing that with you. And it's funny because when I see other podcasters, and I watch quite a few others, I'm very behind as always, but when I watch other podcasters and they hold up something they finished and they say, oh, this is beautiful, I sometimes think, get over yourself, a bit big-headed. But I actually feel that about this test knit I'm working on, and I feel that the pattern is well written. Not well written, that would be wrong. Wasn't it in Star Wars? Anyway, the pattern was well written. The yarn is lovely. All I've had to do is follow the instructions to put the two together. So it does feel like it's a thing of beauty that I've had a hand in, but I'm just the facilitator, if you like. So more to come on that. I'm hoping it will be finished. I think that's it for the intro. Grab yourself a cup of tea or your beverage of choice, and I hope you enjoy.
Hello, lovely people. Excuse the croaky voice. This time last week I didn't have one at all, so we're grateful for small mercies. I am back on what was the machine knitted piece, and a viewer, a lady's name is Yvette, I think, so hi Yvette, thank you for commenting. I had said that you guys probably didn't want to see me swearing at my knitting machine, and she suggested that actually you might quite enjoy me swearing at my knitting machine. Well, the knitting machine is having a bit of a time out at the moment. This is partly because the room it's in, my office and craft room, was being used as a guest room when we had some visitors at the weekend. So I kind of took the yarn guide down and covered it over. But actually, that fornicating piece of excrement ate my knitting. It chewed it up. Oh, I was not a happy bunny. I was trying to do the sleeve. I'd replaced the sponge bar, which I always want to follow with the word square pants, but I'd replaced the sponge bar, which is what the keys rest on, and was trying to work a sleeve by hanging the front and back on, and then you knit down from there, and it ate my knitting. So I am hand knitting. I decided to pick the sleeves up manually, hand knit down. I don't know that I'm going to make them terribly long. Because it's a drop sleeve piece anyway, it's all fairly wide. So I think I'll just make them sort of elbow length. And that'll be as much as I am inclined to do. Because this is still very much an experiment. I mean, when I started, I didn't know if anything usable would come out of it. So that's kind of where we're at. But that's what I'm doing. So I'm hand knitting or purling because I'm working flat a sleeve at the moment. I'll do the same the other side. I don't know if I've actually done it big enough, so I'll do a little crochet gusset, because I think it's important to use the word gusset every now and again, to make it wider if I need to. And then that'll be it. I think I am going to try and dye this. There's a dye technique that I would like to try, and it makes sense to do it on this piece. This whole piece is what they would call in snooker a shot for nothing. You know, you try to pot it, but if you don't get it, nothing lost. And that's how I'm feeling about this sweater. So the dye technique will follow the same principle, that if I end up making something completely unwearable, then it's completely unwearable. The whole thing was trying out the machine. If I can get a garment that I can use out of it, even if it's just a slobbing around the house item, that's great. But I've learnt a lot on the fornicating machine. No, that makes it sound like it's a machine for fornicating. Definitely not that blasted thing. I shouldn't be so negative. One of the things I've learnt is about the yarn I've been using. I mean, this yarn, this cotton, it's got a slub in it. It's very fine weight. When I worked on a piece of 4-ply weight, fingering weight, smooth ply, didn't have as many problems. Funny that. So I just need to think about what yarn I'm using. I tried a bit with 2 strands together of very fine weight, and that seemed to work. So that's an approach I can try. I have learnt a lot. I mean, it would be great if this had produced some sort of fantastic garment, but that was never really an option. So I'm going to carry on with this, repair where it ate. You can see all these bits of threads hanging where it ate it. My machine was hungry. So that's where we are. So I'm not swearing at the machine at the moment. I'm just swearing about it. It will be fine. It will be fine. It will not beat me. I know that. Oh, my dander's up now. Can you tell? So it was a lovely weekend. We had my niece staying with her other half and his 2 little girls. And they are 3 and 7. And they're really nicely behaved children. They just go along with stuff. They don't whinge and whine. So much better than I was at, any age really, let alone that age. And the weather was on our side, so we spent some time at the beach and just had a really nice time doing touristy bits. As my niece says, she comes to visit and they come and see us and we perhaps go out and get something to eat. But they don't really see the tourist side of the town where I live. And it is a holiday town, so it was nice to be able to do the bits and pieces, playing on the amusements and doing the fun fair and those sorts of things. Not that I go on the fun fair, not with my motion sickness. But it was just a really lovely couple of days with them, so glad it went well. The weather was definitely on our side compared to how it is now. It is very grey, has been raining hard. High winds are due, and tomorrow is meant to be the local carnival. And that is... It's not in jeopardy. There are a number of walking groups, us being one of them, the drummers being one of them. So something will still go on, but where people have been making floats on kind of high-sided lorries, some of those may not be able to be in the carnival because the wind is predicted to be over 30 miles an hour and it's just going to be dangerous for people. So there are going to be a lot of safety checks before we start. I mean, obviously, if the winds carry on really high and there's a danger of roof tiles flying around and that sort of thing. Oh, sorry, I was going to sneeze and thought I was going to sneeze and ended up coughing. Then none of us will be walking. If people are in danger of being hurt, then the whole thing will be cancelled. Because it's on the seafront, because it goes along the main road along the seafront, there's not a lot to protect you from the wind. So we may have a rescheduled carnival tomorrow. And you got to feel sorry for the people that have been putting a lot of time and effort into the floats and the procession. It will be such a shame if they can't take part. But naturally, safety has got to be paramount. It's an event that families come to. You don't want anyone getting hurt, least of all small people. So we just got to keep our fingers crossed that the weather calms down. The carnival starts at, I think it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And the forecast at the moment is showing the weather starting to calm by then. So hopefully it will. I'll let you know how that goes. I don't think I'll be wearing my hat tomorrow, let's put it that way. I'll have very red hair and a scarf tied around my head, but no hat, I feel. I don't want to lose it. So yeah, I'll let you know how it goes and I'll keep on. This is currently my car knitting, But I have a lot of acquisition to show you, some yarn that was given to me, and a lot of that yarn will make great charity projects. So the car crafting is going to go back to blankets and hats soon. But I've got this on me at the moment.
Right, lovely people, I am going to go now into the acquisition part of the podcast. The acquisition that comes from not buying any yarn. I have lovely people, I know. I really do. I'm a very spoilt person. So the first bit of acquisition I've got, I have a friend who is also a celebrant, and she asked me to do her a favour, and from my point of view it was a really small favour, but from her point of view she was very grateful. So she said she would buy me some yarn, and I said, you really don't need to, I'm more than happy to do this small thing. And she said, no, I'll get it. And this appeared at my door. So I have 4 wonderful big balls, I like big balls and I cannot lie, of James C. Brett Marble Chunky. There's no colourway name, it's colour MC7, but beautiful autumnal shades. 4 by 200 grams, and they are, I looked it up, they're about 300 metres each, I think. 312 metres. So that is an Ursa sweater, quite right there. I have been looking at the Ursa, I have bought the pattern, and I had some Aran weight yarn that I thought I might be able to use, but this would just be spot on. So let me just see, it's blowing out a little bit, let me bring it back. The colours are richer than they're showing here. I don't know why I'm doing that with my hand on this enormous ball of yarn, that's really going to be effective. Oh, excuse me, sorry. So yes, 4 of these. It's lovely and soft. Its construction of the yarn is, the fibre is, I think it's 100% acrylic, yeah, machine washable, knits to most chunky patterns, I only want it to knit to 1. So very much looking forward to making the Ursa with that, and I'll put a picture here of the Ursa if you've no idea what I'm talking about. It's one of those patterns that seems to be kind of everywhere at the moment. And I don't always make the patterns that everyone makes, but I have taken a shine to this one. So thank you very much, Louise. Pretty. Now the next acquisition, a sip of tea first. I'm going to unveil and unpack in front of you, and I'm sitting here with my head on my hand because there's a lot of it. Let me tell you a story. The lovely Claire, sorry, putting my tea back. The lovely Claire, who presents the Ferret and Gibbon podcast, is a wonderful human being, a fellow drummer, a fellow knitter, and she's recently moved offices. And when they were sorting out their old office, she said, oh, we've got some bags of general acrylic, and I think they've had it when they've done events in their offices and made pom-poms and things like that. She said, can you use it? And of course, my charity, cat blankets, hats for homeless people. That makes it sound like I'm a real kind of good person. I'm not, I do a little bit, but this can certainly be used for that. So she said, I've got a bag of it, I'll bring it along, so thank you very much. She didn't tell me how big a bag it is. Now, I haven't been through it yet. I'm about to go through it with you lovely people. I did have a cursory glance, and I said to her, some of this stuff isn't acrylic. There's some 100% wool there. Do you want it back? Because, you know, I'm not. And she said, nah, I probably wouldn't use it. So thank you again, Claire. That's very much appreciated. I'm now going to unveil. Now, a lot of these balls, as far as I can tell, aren't labelled. So I'm going to go through it fairly quickly, but the first one I can see is, and it's West Yorkshire Spinners Airedale Double Knitting, which is a 75% wool, 25% nylon mix, which I've just thrown on the floor. So yeah, we've already got something very lovely. Yes. And then in this bag, oh, I do apologise. We have, oh, we've got a pattern actually. Pattern for a child's sweater, which someone has started. But obviously this is not wanted, so thank you very much. And this is Rowan Pure Wool Superwash DK. So again, wool, 100% wool. So, and a beautiful soft. It's going a little blue. It's more of a sort of grey, really pretty colour. So we've got 2 and a bit balls of that. This is big, thick chenille stuff. Lovely and soft. All the DK will go into the blankets. The other stuff I'll find sort of various projects for. Also a good supply of Ziploc bags, which I will be giving back to Claire if she wants to use them, because I think she had a bit of a moth problem recently. Nobody wants that. So we've got some gorgeous purple. That's a nice sort of mauvey, pinky. I never know how to describe that colour. But that colour, there you go. Red, a little bit of red. Orange, a very bright orange, so that's all great. Oh, I'm going to have some fun. This is just playtime, isn't it? There's loads of this stuff. Now this, again, looks very woolly. I'll have to, you know, bleach it, set light to it, whatever the tests are. But this has a very woolly feel to it. So I'm guessing that's pure wool. There's another one of, I think, the same. Oh! Sorry, this must be so much fun watching me wind balls of yarn. This looks like a leftover or a recycle from something. Nice dark red. I've got some chunky here. I'm not sure what that fibre is, but a lovely cream colour. Some red. That feels like a regular kind of DK acrylic. Oh, it looks as if I'm giving a rude signal. Sorry. I didn't mean to be giving anyone the bird there. Here's a red with a white. The way it's plied with a much finer white or cream yarn to give it that kind of boucle texture. More of the woolly stuff, I think. Welcome to the vague news. More of the red, the boucle red. That's a nice strong red actually. That could end up being something drumming costumey, I think. This just goes on and on, it's amazing. Got some green. Oh, it's some more of the West Yorkshire Spinners. Wow. And then we've got a few sort of odd bits in here, odd ends and strands of stuff we've already seen. We've got some black, again looks like DK acrylic. We've got some grey that's, oh, there we have a piece of modern art. We've got some grey that I will untangle and wind. Oh, it may belong to this. In fact, I'm pretty sure it belongs to this, so I shall put that to one side so I can wind that round. This is unbelievable. I've even got a pair of needles here, some 5mm. There we go. This is a pretty colour. Peyton's Fab. So that is 100% acrylic. Good workhorse acrylic yarn, that one. I really like that colour. It's a very sort of dark teal. That's about right, I think. It's looking a little bluer. And it looks as if I have quite a bit of another ball of that one as well. This is just unbelievable. This has got some kind of label in it. Well, here's a name. Name I haven't come across before. I don't know if you can see that, it's focusing. Baby Beaver. 50% acrylic, 50% nylon. Beautiful soft yarn. Soft in colour and texture. There's some thick old chunky with some gold. You can see the sparkle in that. So it's plied with a stellina of some sort. Get my head out of the way. No, all you can see is my head. Let me try that. Hopefully you can see that. Oh, more of the Baby Beaver by the looks of things. More of the chunky. Oh, it's playtime. Oh my goodness, there's another carrier bag in here. Hayfield Hawaii, which is again a nylon acrylic blend, but very different feel to the Baby Beaver. This is a firmer yarn, twisted much tighter, and it's got these kind of bobbly slubby bits in. Oh, more of that red. Pink. Nice blue. Now I have a feeling this could be Poundland blue because it looks very familiar and I have used some of that before, so I think I know what that is. And again, just a few kind of oddments. Oh, that's a really nice purple actually. Oh goodness me. Ah, there's that purple, there's a big ball of it. It's not showing up on the screen. Again, I'm you know, one hand, one enormous ball of yarn, it's not going to work. But this, I'm going to put it up really close in the hope that it focuses. But it's a dark purple with flecks of pink in it. So it's a really nice colour. Nice soft feel on that one as well. A lot of this red. Pale green. It's blowing out a bit. It's a pale green. How's that? No, it's still... That's just a ball of yarn on my shoulder. That's not doing anything at all. Dark blue. Now this feels like a crepe yarn. Quite a nice shade of blue, that one. Peach. I'm not going to run out of any colours in the near future. Oh my goodness me. Oh, lots of red, including... Someone must have been Christmas thinking because we've now got green, white and red with this. Some red that feels like acrylic. Some more of the Hawaii. Some more baby blues, not the yarn that I was looking at earlier, but some more baby blues. This feels like a crepe. This looks like the same yarn as this in a lighter shade. Oh, they obviously were going for a set on these actually, which is good. Actually, I've now got 4 lots of that, so that's interesting. This is Drops Peak, which is 70% acrylic, 30% wool. It has a lot of plies, as you can see there. It's quite a thick yarn with a lot of plies. Hopefully you can see that anyway. I'm not doing this very well. There we go. And it's a recommended needle size of 8mm, so that is quite chunky. We're nearly there. We're nearly there, people. You do not have to watch me unbagging much more of this stuff. And more of the same. Now that looks a little finer. That looks more like a 4-ply weight. So, as does that. That looks quite fine. That feels nice and soft, actually. And yes, a collection. So yes, just lots of acrylic yarn. So the local cats and hopefully the local homeless people will be well provided. And huge thank you to Claire for all that yarn. My first question is, where do I store it? That's a nice problem to have. And then we go on to what do I make with it. So hurrah, very happy and spoiled. Thank you very much. So here is that lovely haul. This is all the stuff without labels, and you can see the extent of it. Now, when I was talking about acrylic and using it for charity stuff, not because I don't like acrylic yarn, partly because it's been given to me, and I feel I ought to do something selfless with it, or at least some of it. And also acrylic's handy for the charity stuff because it's fairly hard wearing and washable. But I mean, these colours, that purple is gorgeous, the red is lovely and bright, there's some fabulous stuff in here, so I think there will be a sweater for me as well. And thank you again, Claire. Hello my lovelies. Viewers of earlier episodes will know that I got a knitting machine a few months ago, a second-hand one. And as I said earlier in this podcast, depending on how I edit this together, it was in time out for a little while because it was very naughty and it ate my knitting. That's not acceptable behaviour. So it's been sitting in the corner, it's been thinking about what it's done. And I'm hoping it's behaved a bit more. Well, I say I'm hoping, I know it isn't. I have been working on it this morning. Can you tell? The whole thing is such a learning experience for me, including what type of yarns to use. So this one, it's a very fine yarn. It's on a cone that I got from eBay 100 years ago. Yeah, that's working pretty well. This is a slightly stickier yarn and it's not working as well. So when it does come through, it's fine, but it's just really not doing it. Now again, viewers of previous episodes will know that I've got lots of cones of very fine yarn, and last year I made a sweater using about 5 strands together. So I thought I'd try some today. And this is 2 strands of a viscose yarn, along with, which is the sort of pale cream undyed colour, and some grey, which is a silk yarn. And the silk is slightly thicker. Now I'm quite liking the way that's looking, but it came off the needles pretty quickly. It kind of bounced off. So I think that this would be better if these yarns were plied together, particularly as the silk is quite brittle. So if I plied them together, come the glorious day when I ever get a big spinning wheel, then that will help with strength. And also will stop it being quite so splitty, because some of the threads were catching on the needles and some weren't. So an interesting experience. The first thing I did with the knitting machine today was actually go through with a thing of jewellery pliers and straighten out all the latches because some of them had bent over. The needles, you've got a bit that goes like that and then a bit that sits on top like that. And some of them were kind of a bit that way, and some were even caught under like that, which means that when you're moving the carriage across, the yarn gets caught in them, it doesn't flow through properly. So I did that first of all, then did a few samples. Then I started working with a 4-ply weight yarn. This is a Regia yarn, hand-dyed effect by K Facette or something like that. I've got quite a lot of this. I may even have enough for a sweater. I'm really going off brand at the moment, I'm so sorry. Yeah, so enough for a sweater potentially. So I've got a decent sized swatch and it went fairly smoothly. So I need to block this swatch, get the gauge, work out what I'm doing next. But in terms of actually using the machine on this, smoothest so far. So I think it's the right thickness of yarn. It's a 4-ply fingering weight, and it went through pretty smoothly. So hopefully this can become the building block of something exciting. Hope springs. Now I'm going to take a sip of my tea in my shush I'm counting mug, which himself got me when he went to Glasgow. Oh, he's downstairs coughing now. You can be in it if you want. Because I've been pretty much exclusively working on the test knit this month, I don't have a lot of knitting content to share with you. So it could be quite a short episode, but some lovely folks have kindly said that they're interested in what I do outside of knitting, which is very sweet. So I'm going to sit here. Let's pretend this is a virtual knit night, do a bit of knitting together. This is a panel for my panel jacket, which, again, making good progress on. That's working steadily. So let's just sit and have a bit of a knit night chat. Well, I say chat. Obviously, I'm going to be chatting. I can't hear what you're saying. And if you don't want to hear what I'm saying, just turn the volume down and chat. That would be great. It'd be lovely. If this does not interest you at all, that's completely understood. And I'll put a timestamp in so you know where to kick over to. But yes, what's been going on? Well, the beginning of August, we had visitors. And this room became a guest room. We had my niece, her other half, his two little girls, and niece and other half were in the spare room. And what I sit on here is a futon, and we've also got another fold-up bed. So we brought those in here, and the girls stayed in here. And they're really good company. I'm not used to children. We don't have any, and we've never lived that close to our niece and nephews. But they're very well behaved children. Considering they'd only met me once, they'd never met himself, unfamiliar house, but they just really settled and were lovely to have around. So that was good fun. We were also really lucky with the weather because it was sunny and not too windy. So we spent time on the beach and just had a nice weekend. So that was good. In terms of activities, it would have been better if they were coming the following weekend. Niece's other half has them every other weekend, as a lot of separated dads do. So in terms of activities, the following weekend would have been better because there was a lot going on here. It was Old Town Week where I live, and that culminates in Carnival. But the weather was not on anyone's side. A lot of people had pulled out because we go right along the seafront. It's a bit blustery. So it was pretty much walking groups. And apparently there was a letter in the local paper this week saying that the majorettes, the twirlers, didn't look very happy. And you think they're 6 years old. They can barely stay on the ground because the wind is blowing so hard. And you're complaining they don't look very happy? You try it, mate. You know, that was the kind of sense of that. We had a good laugh, we being the drumming group. We were leading out the procession. Because of the wind, I didn't wear my hat. I've got a red top hat that you quite often see me in. I left that at home because I didn't want to have to go and pick it up from France, basically. And here is a picture of what I wore instead. And unusually for me, alcohol was consumed. I'm not much of a drinker. I mean, this was the first time I'd drunk alcohol since Christmas. For no particular reason other than there aren't many things that I like. But I decided, because I wasn't driving, I would have a little drinky. Because I don't drink very often, it doesn't take a lot. And I wasn't completely out of it, leery, threatening to punch people, calling everyone my best mate type of drunk. But I was a bit giggly. And one of the other drummers had also been partaking of alcohol, and she was one end of the line and I was the other end, and we were looking at each other going... So it was good fun. It's quite a long day. We started... I ended up being a bit late because I fell asleep at home. So we meant to start about 2. I think I joined them about 3. The carnival itself wasn't until 5 o'clock. But we had other performances around the town in the meantime, and it was good fun. It was a good day. A few hardy souls around, nowhere near as many as you'd have on a bright and sunny day, and that's understandable, particularly if you've got children, because you know, it's standing out in the cold waiting for things to go past you, so not always the best fun, but those who were there really entered into the spirit of stuff, and hopefully they had a good time, apart from the chap who wrote to the local paper to complain. There's always one. There's always one. Never mind. So that's kind of what's happened so far this month. Now this is going to turn out to be a big month in this house. Oh, just one other little thing. When the girls were here, we're talking about knitting at one point, and they did say, "There's a lot of wool in the room we're sleeping in." Yes, there is a lot of wool. That's very observant of you girls. No judgments, just observations. That's what we like. So it's a big month in Knitting or Death Towers, because at the end of this month, himself will leave his job. And I'm going to have to take a sip of tea for that. He has worked for the same organisation for a couple of months shy of 30 years, and a redundancy package became available. Now it's a government organisation that he works for, and because he joined it so long ago, it was in the days when the wages weren't the highest, but fairly secure and really good pension deals. Which means that since the age of 50, he's been able to take a pension. Now it's a reduced pension. The earlier he takes it, the more it reduces, understandably. But he then had the opportunity to take redundancy. And there are times in the last few years when the stress of the job has made him quite ill. So it was not a difficult decision to say, yes, please, I'd like to apply for redundancy. Apparently he was told that it was with reluctance they accepted his application, but basically by losing him, they've saved 2 other jobs. So that's good. He's doing a good thing for himself as well as for the 2 people whose jobs are saved. And we worked out all the numbers, and he's going to start taking his pension. So basically, at the end of this month, he's going to retire at the age of 52. I'm not jealous at all. I'm extremely jealous. That's not fair. I do enjoy my job, but just the thought of having income and not having to do anything, that's a nice thought, isn't it? So yes, he oh, excuse me, I'm choked up. So he will retire at the end of this month, and a whole new chapter in our lives begins. He's not at this stage looking to get another job. If he finds he does get a bit bored, then he may look for something part-time or some voluntary work. He's grabbed the prospectus from the local college to look at the adult education courses, and he may go and do some cookery courses. That works for me. So I said, so when you're here all the time, you're going to work on the garden? He said, oh, yeah. I said, going to do the cooking? He said, yeah. You're going to do the ironing? A bit quiet then. So yes, that's what's happening. So it's a time of a lot of change. It's going to take a lot of adjustment because it's the only organisation he's ever worked for. He's found the notice period in the last sort of couple of months since he's known this is happening to be very difficult. And you know what it's like when you are leaving a job, you get a bit demob happy too early. And he's never left a job before. When he's been promoted, it's been through structural reorganisations, or he's gone in and filled a job temporarily and then been promoted, or he's been offered the position. So he's never had that experience. So the last 6-8 weeks have been quite a struggle for him. Just keeping the motivation going has been the toughest. But we're nearly there. And he will retire at the end of the month. I'm not sure I'm old enough to be married to a pensioner. Anyway, we'll see. Now, he's looking forward to it, and so's the dog. because she is Daddy's little princess anyway, so the fact that he's going to be here more of the time will delight her. He's going to play more golf, he's going to find bits and pieces to do, so it's a period of adjustment, but one that he's really looking forward to. I think that's probably about it for August. I mean, that's big enough really, isn't it? You know, leaving a job after nearly 30 years, so that's pretty huge, and we'll see what the future brings with that. Thanks for chatting. Right, I'm going to do the rest of the podcast as a floating head over Enid. No, of course I'm not. As you can see, I have finished the Aadya sweater, and I will take you through it in just a moment. Obviously, I would normally be wearing a finished item. Even the dog is unhappy about this. I'm sorry, Heidi, but we're having a heat wave, a tropical heat wave. Stop it. So that's why I'm not wearing this lovely sweater. I will in future podcasts, that is guaranteed. But Enid is taking care of business for me, so I will talk you through it now. Right, lovely, so here you can see the sweater in all of its glory. This is the test knit that I've been working on. This is the Aadya sweater by Knidiknits, and it is a thing of glory and wonder. You can see we've got this beautiful cable and lace panel down the front. That's also echoed on the sleeve. You can see just a stripe of it there. Sleeve design is unusual. It has a cuff and a button rather than going into a rib, and an I-cord bind off. And then there is this deep rib welt, which is just a thing of gorgeousness. On the back, excuse me Enid, I'm just going to swing you around. Oh, you're looking a little bit humped at the back, love. Sorry, I'm not very straight here. But you can see these sort of tram lines which echo the pattern at the front. And again, the deep welt. It's a top-down raglan. As you can see there. And I'm really happy with it. It's a cropped length. My idea is to wear this over dresses, but once you get to the armhole shaping, it's straight down, so if you wanted to make it longer you could certainly do that without any complication. Niddy also suggested that you may want to do something with the neckline. She left it relatively plain, but it is something you could do, and there are short rows just to give it a bit of height at the back, so that's all rather lovely. It does fit well. Again, apologies I'm not wearing it, but it is extremely warm, and I don't want it to start felting because I'm sweating into it so much. The yarn is from Stranded Dyeworks, and it's the MCN 4-ply weight, fingering weight yarn in the house red colourway, and because of the light it's actually showing up a little bit lighter. Let me try and get closer in and you'll possibly get a better sense of the colours. They should be a little darker than this. Yeah, they're actually a bit darker because it's such a bright day. It's blowing out a little bit, so it's more of a dark red. And there we go. I alternated skeins, as I've mentioned in the past. Amy from Stranded Dyeworks is a member of my knitting group, and she very kindly turned up with a load of yarn, and these were sort of shop seconds, just items that she didn't want to put in the shop because they had more colour variation in than she would normally sell, that kind of thing. But there was a sweater quantity in, and it's one of my favourite of her colourways, so I said thank you very much, and here we are. It's not a colourway she dyes very often. I took this to Knit Night this week, and she was saying that it's difficult to get consistent results on it, so she doesn't dye it very often, but she's looking to reintroduce it. Now, the eagle-eyed among you will have spotted my mistake, which is here. My cable went the wrong way, but I was here before I spotted it, and I wasn't going back to here to sort it out. So you'd have to be eagle-eyed to notice, and I like to think it's my original unique touch on it. I'm going to stop you staring at Enid's chest now while I tell you the rest of the details. So in terms of yarn usage, it was just under 1,500 metres. Like I say, it's a crop length. Normally I would expect a fingering weight sweater my size to be around the 2,000 metre mark, so it makes sense that it was a little less given that it was a cropped weight. But it's so soft. Now Amy is not going to be doing the MCN for much longer. She's decided to, she said she's found it to be less popular, so she's changing it for another base, details to be revealed. But it is a lovely soft sweater. Now I had a message on the last podcast from a lady called Lynn who was saying about substituting yarns, because the original pattern was for a woolen spun yarn. And obviously this is, and quite a sort of rustic yarn, wool, whereas this is a much softer yarn. And she was saying, I can't remember the exact words of the question, forgive me Lynn, but it was, oh, I didn't realise you could substitute like that. And really you kind of can, but you can't. Yes, you can substitute anything for anything, providing you work the gauge out. Now I got pretty close to stitch gauge on this, but my row gauge was short, or long, depending on which way you look at it. I got fewer rows per 10 centimetres than the pattern specified, so this meant I had to do a little bit of recalculation for the raglan shaping, because I was going to work fewer rows for the length required, so I had to increase a little more often. That, before it was blocked, looked a little puckered, but it blocked out absolutely fine, as I thought it would, so that was all okay. Yeah, so providing you get the gauge right, you can substitute anything for anything, as long as you understand what you're going to get. So in substituting a woolen, woolly, toothy, rusticy type yarn for a merino cashmere nylon mix, I have a different effect. So I have more drape because of the cashmere, because of the merino. It's not going to be quite as stiff. And also it will probably pill more. The cashmere has a very short staple, it will pill. Now it could be that once I depill it, then that's it, because all the fluffy bits have come out. I don't know quite what this means. And that'll be that done. Or it could mean that it regularly needs depilling and that it won't last as long as a woolen, you know, a hardier wool would last. That's a risk I've taken, because I like it very much and I should be very gentle and careful with it. So yes, it's likely to pill, particularly areas of hard wear, so the underarm where it rubs against the body of the sweater. That's something I need to be careful about. Now I do have quite a bit of this yarn left over. I know, not only is it all in the same yarn, but I have some left over. So off-brand. So if this did wear, I could rework the sleeves if I wanted. I don't think that will ever be necessary, but it's a possibility. So yeah, in answer to Lynn, if you want it to look exactly the same as the pattern sample, then use the same yarn or something which is made up in the same way. So the same fibres, same weight, same drape, same everything, and make sure your gauge matches the pattern to get that same drape on the fabric, even if it means you're using a completely different needle size. But if you want to use a different yarn, as I did with this one, yes, you can do that, but you have to accommodate accordingly. So it's just a really lovely sweater. It's the first time I've done a test knit, which was an interesting process for me, because normally I'm a bit, one doesn't like to use the word slapdash, but it is accurate. So I was much more careful with this knit than I would be if I was just working a pattern for myself. there are more times when I've sort of said, oh, blow it, I'm not bothering, I'll fudge it. And I didn't. I showed you that cable mistake. I'm not going to go and alter that. I think it's a nice detail. Excuse me. So yes, there are, it did make me work to the pattern. I have made a couple of very slight alterations where it splits for the cuff. The pattern just had it working absolutely straight. I added some knit and purl there just to prevent curling, and on the hem where you've got the rib pattern, nearly had it working almost to the edges, but with blocks of stocking stitch at the end. It was so that everything would match up with the lines coming down the back and coming down at the edge of the lace cable pattern at the front. I wasn't so keen on that, so I carried on that pattern round a little more, and I did fudge that slightly. But overall, very happy with it. People have said nice things about the pattern, have been interested in when it's coming out. So as soon as I know it's been published, I will let you know. It's been a delight to work. So that's the Aadya pullover by Knidiknits, and yes, I will let you know when it's published and available for all to get hold of if you're interested. Talking of letting you know when things are happening, I mentioned in a previous podcast the lovely Gemma from the Project Bag, who used to sell on Etsy, and that's her hand-dyed yarns and her bags. She now has her own website, which I will put in the notes, which is hopefully where everything is that we need, that I've mentioned that we need. We don't need anything, we have stuff. That I've mentioned in the podcast. So Gemma's website will be on there. Also, I think she's exhibiting at the Perth Yarn Festival. So if you're lucky enough to be going to that, you can go along and see her lovely stuff there. The test knit is done, yay! It was touch and go at some point as to whether I'd get it finished. I knew I would always get it to the amount required in the test, but to have got it finished makes me happy. I'm smiling. So we're all good. So I've cast off a project, so I need to cast on one or two, don't I? Got a couple of things in mind. Digging out the yarn for one yesterday. Speaking of Gemma of the Project Bag, if you watch her podcast, and I do recommend it, she has her whips board, so she has a whiteboard on which she's got all of her works in progress, of which an impressive number, I have to say. I thought I was a bit crazy because I'd got up to double figures once. She exceeds that. She has a lot of whips on the needles and hook, and so she's got a whip board. I am thinking of blatantly stealing that idea. I hope you don't mind, Gemma, because I don't have a whiteboard, but I do have a corkboard, and I'm thinking of putting my whips on bits of paper and pinning them onto here with kind of progress, so that I can just kind of keep a mental track of how it's going and not get too carried away. But I am going to start 2 projects first in case I am carried away and I don't want it to spoil my fun. I'm so weak. So I think we're pretty much there. Apologies, this has probably been quite a long one this month, but without a lot of knitting, or rather a lot of knitting, but all on one super gorgeous project. Oh, I love it. So have a good September. What does September hold? Apart from himself being here a lot because he's retiring. Still can't get my head around that. We've got a couple of trips away, or we have one and I have another. We're going to Cornwall to visit family. If you saw my podcasts from last September, I had some time off work and I took footage of some of the places I went to, and we went to Cornwall. Going again, hopeful for better weather this year, because if I remember rightly, it persistently rained last year. So hopefully we'll have some sunshine. Oh, that's an attractive fringe, Leslie, nicely done. I'm also going to the New Forest to meet some friends. The friends that I've been making stuff for throughout the year. You saw the Tale of Two Beanies last month rather. It's these friends that I'll be seeing. So that should be good fun. The last time I saw them, we had a day together, and I can't remember the last time I laughed as much. So looking forward to seeing them, which should be good fun. We're staying in an Airbnb. It will be chaos, but in a good way. Also, again, last September, went to a local alpaca farm's open day, and that's coming up again. So my mate Mand and I will be heading there. I don't know why I always say it like that, because she doesn't talk like that, but my friend Mandy and I will be going to see the alpacas. So I'll take some photos and put some footage in of for next month's podcast. But I think that's done. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for the comments. Really so delighted to see the comments that I get and to kind of chat with people. Just a huge thank you. I hope you have a good September. Kids are back to school, if you have kids in your life. It's the start of sweater weather. It's got to be a good thing. A mate of mine always used to say one whiff of a bonfire and the needles come out, because she never knitted in the summer, but as soon as the autumn started she'd be out there with the needles. So it's time to get enthusiastic again. Not that, you know, we've lost our enthusiasm, but if mojo has been lacking, it's time for woolliness. So we like that. Have a great month, whatever you're doing. Hope you get time to do the crafts and the things that you love. And I'll see you again at the end of September. Thanks so much and take care. Bye-bye.